Okay. Hey, it's really great to see y'all out there. I know it's been quite a while. So I just want to give some shout outs, say hello to everybody before we get into this adventure. Okay, so hello to Kyla. Always good to see you. Hope all is well. Hello, Chan. Hello. Welcome. Good to see you. Jamie, hello. Says look forward to this. Thank you. Really glad to have you. Alina says early. That is most definitely shocking. Well, as most of you probably saw, we ended up not being early, so actually ended up being a little behind here. That's all right. Travel Bug, great to see you. Travel Bug saw the "Don't be a jerk." I guess warning or rule thing that pops up with YouTube comments. Mao, hey, great to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well, brother. And Dusty, hey, great to see you, my friend. Says hello, Mark, in chat. Yeah, what's going on, Jim? Dusty says, prayers of safety to all in Jamaica. Yeah, that, oh, God. I was talking earlier about this. I'll go in here and then I guess I'll just put the camera on and all that stuff. But, oh, not working again. Come on. Hello. Real man. Anyways, yeah, with Jamaica, well, one second. I hear a beep there. All right. Forgot I had to restart my computer, which usually, why isn't that? Right back to normal with the technical difficulties, right, guys? Oh, wait, here we go. Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. But yeah, the whole thing going on in Jamaica is just incredibly sad. What's coming for him. Had my eye on it, obviously, because there was a small chance of it coming up to Florida, so we just kept an eye on it. But oh, it's so sad. You know what it reminded me of? Is I don't know if any of you remember, we talked about this as it was happening in Trump's first term. Do you remember that storm that was off the southeast coast of Florida and it hung out in the ocean, building and building and building for, I'm not even joking, I think it was like 2 weeks, some ridiculous, even if it might not have been that, maybe like 12 days or 11 days. And it just stayed there and built and built and built. And then all the trajectory maps that they had said it was going to hit Florida. And it just magically like took a turn and then went up the coast and disappeared. Nothing ever became of it. Now this storm reminded me a little bit of that, except it's going to hit Jamaica, obviously, which is horrible. I just hope anyone who's there is able to crunch their way to the west side of Jamaica there and somehow stay out of the worst of it. But it's whatever we're going to see from there is going to be horrible. So yeah, let's send our intentions out there to everybody for safety and security and the least amount of damage possible to their friends, family, and homes. It's really sad. Can't imagine what we're gonna see. But yeah. Anyways, tried. Good to see you. Says the brain knew it. 7 holographic seconds before that. Before that, there is a live evil coming up. Word magic. Hello, NDE. Greetings. And Boopster. Hey, good to see you, sister. Welcome. Uni, hello, welcome. The Gage says it's been a while since those that can't pay have been able to join the conversations. Well, to be honest, it's I haven't been streaming much at all. I just haven't been feeling too well. So the only commitment I really tried to keep was to the members and supporters, and I apologize, but there will be more regular content. I usually, just my health issues and stuff. I was normally able to do like at least a stream a week for the longest time, and then do the monthly member stream at the end. But, as probably a bunch of you noticed over the last 2 years, it went from every week to like every 10 days or every 2 weeks, and then it's just gotten like to maybe once or twice a month, and plus the member stream. So yeah, I apologize. I'm going to try to do some more. I do have a lot that I'd love to get to. It's just a matter of finding the energy to really be able to do that. And let's just say the Matrix is throwing the gauntlet at me, and I'm not going to go over a bunch of stuff that happened, but I'll explain it in another stream, because we do got to get into this soon. And Arcane says, nice to catch the show before it starts. Yeah, great to have you. Always good to see you, my friend. And let's see, Aaron says, greetings and salutations from Seattle. Hello, welcome, greetings to you. Boopster says, greetings from Seattle too. Okay, my friend, so let's get into this, okay? So I've really wanted to cover, I've talked about the Holographic Universe and Michael Talbot's work in the past. But the Holographic Universe was this huge book. It changed a lot of people's minds and thoughts about the very fabric of the realm and our relation to it. But what a lot of people don't know is that he had a book a few years before that about past lives called Your Past Lives. And it's a great book. And what's beautiful about it too is that, you're getting other researchers that aren't as well known discussed in the book, some of which I have covered on the channel. One of them was actually not that long ago, maybe about 4 months ago. But we're going to go over some of that as we go through the book. We are going to do a cover-to-cover commentary of this book, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think you're going to find a lot of value in this. So hang with me. We'll have the first stream obviously tonight, and then thinking we'll do part 2 on Thursday, the 30th. And then we'll have probably a part 3 on maybe Saturday or Sunday, maybe Friday night. I don't know. But we're going to be for a little bit of a long haul with this series. And it'll probably be, I'm guessing, 6 videos, maybe 7. Somewhere around there. So I appreciate you all being here. And I will have some things going to be sharing in the chat as well. Links and resources, all that stuff. So let's get into it, all right? Just bear with me one moment while I get everything synchronized here. Shouldn't be a problem, but okay. Here we go. Hopefully, gotta kill this music here. Hopefully this comes up all right. I gotta get back in the swing of things here. Here we go. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
A Reincarnation Handbook. Michael Talbot, 1987. Preface. In 1981, a Gallup poll revealed that 38 million Americans now believe they've had past lives, about 1/4 of our adult population. More and more intelligent, Successful people from all walks of life are seriously beginning to consider the possibility that they have lived before. And this growing interest in reincarnation is not limited to the general public. Increasing numbers of psychologists, medical doctors, and therapists are using past life regression techniques to help people overcome emotional and physical health problems and tap into skills and talents that some believe were first learned in previous incarnations. As increasing attention is focused on past lives, more people are becoming interested in exploring the issue for themselves, in finding out how to unlock their own past life memories, as well as in learning what benefits to their relationships, outlooks, and professional lives might come from unearthing these memories. This book will satisfy these interests. In it you will find step-by-step exercises and techniques for all of the best-known methods for delving into your past life. These include meditation methods, ways for you to inspire and remember dreams about your past lives, simple self-hypnosis techniques, and guided imagery exercises for 2 or more people. Included among these is a technique that I have developed myself called the resonance method, which is a very simple way of determining immediately and without meditation various possible past life dramas, geographic locations, and time periods hidden in your unconscious, as well as numerous other pieces of information which may represent your own past life memories. Because some of the methods of past life recall now available can only be done safely by trained professionals, the book also includes advice on how to find a past life therapist, what sort of training and credentials to look for, and what sort of regression techniques are available for you to choose from. Whatever your reasons for wanting to explore your previous lives, and whether you believe in reincarnation or not, you will find that the methods given in this book work. With them you will be able to unlock a stream of remarkable stories which now lie hidden in your unconscious mind. Whether you believe these stories are fantasies or actual past life memories is up to you. It is my hope only that you learn from them and expand your horizons. Introduction. I believe in reincarnation. I always have. The reasons for my conviction are simple. For as long as I can remember, I have always had memories of former existences. When I was a small child, this resulted in my refusing to call my parents mother and father until I was 5 years old, when they gently persuaded me to stop calling them by their first names because I was embarrassing them in front of their friends. My refusal was not due to any absence of affection on my part. I did not have a mature intellectual understanding of what the tracks of strange memories inside my head meant, but I was vividly aware that I possessed a continuity, a history beyond the child's body in which I found myself. So it did not make sense to me to call the 2 kind people who were taking care of me my parents. This was not the only precocity that my parents were forced to contend with. They rapidly discovered that they had a child on their hands who insisted upon drinking several cups of strong black tea every day, who preferred sitting cross-legged on the floor to sitting in chairs, and who was fanatically drawn to things Asian. I also recall asking my mother about several ways that I remembered having died before. Fortunately, there was no longer any trauma attached to these memories, and my mother was able to dismiss them. It wasn't until I grew older that I began to understand the import of this strange farrago of memories. By the time I was an adolescent, I realized that I had clear but fragmented recollections of what appeared to be over a dozen different past lives.
So, like, that's the key, right? Is and I think this is really, really important to put out there. There are some people that, believe wholeheartedly that they have a full account of all their incarnations and or at least a good chunk of them, right? But the issue is in reality, it's fragmented memories. I don't think there are. I'm not going to say that there aren't none, because I do feel that there are a group of individuals out there who do have full access to their memories as well as the history of the realm itself, but they are part of the control system. But for the everyday person, the everyday incarnator, right? They, if they're going to be connecting with past life memories, it's going to be fragmented. It's not going to be the lay of the land, and they're going to have full knowledge about what was going on with them and their surroundings. They're going to have pieces and chunks of that, and it's going to be valuable to them and their journey and how to implement and go through all that stuff, process it, and how it may impact their current incarnation. But don't ever believe anyone who comes on the internet and claims that they have full recall of all their past lives, front to back, birth to death, over and over and over again, because it's just not true. Like those individuals don't exist. You have at least if they do exist, and again, there are some out there probably, which would be part of the control structure, but they likely would never be known to us. Now, an interesting person you can talk about as far as memory recall in this lifetime is someone like Mary Lou Henner, the actress, well known for being on Taxi, right? But I just thought I'd throw her out there. If none of you have heard of her, look into her. She's a really interesting lady, and she has incredible recall for this incarnation. She's like one of those rare people, like you can give her a date and she would know what the day was and what she was doing and blah, 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 and be able to recall it like that. It's really interesting. And there's aren't many of those individuals out there, but I've kind of like looking into that topic as far as recall in this incarnation. They're out there, and they're incredible to research. And I think more have come to the forefront of our of Earth because of the internet. So we've a few more have been discovered, and there's probably a number more as well who have such incredible recall in this incarnation. It would be interesting to be able to talk to someone like that, right? And kind of see what you might be able to do in like a regression situation. Can something like that carry over and bring information from past lives, or is it more contained to the bulk of this incarnation instead? And if it goes back to past lives, how many past lives? We can go on and on and on about this type of stuff, but we'd be here forever. But check her out, Mary Lou Henner.
In a few instances, I even remembered names and other obscure but specific details about certain geographic location. Although it is difficult for me to prove that these spontaneous recollections are actual evidence of past lives, in a few instances the information that came bubbling out of me seemed otherwise of inexplicable origin. As a very small child, after I finished the traditional "Now I lay me down to sleep" prayer taught to me by my parents, I automatically followed it with a request to God to release the suffering of all conscious beings. It was only later that I discovered that the ending I had given the prayer was of Buddhist origin. Similarly, as a young adult, although I had had only 2 months of piano lessons as a child, I discovered that with just a few months of practice I was able to play difficult pieces by Chopin and Rachmaninoff. But to me the most persuasive evidence that my fragmented memories are actual remnants of past life experience comes not from the place names, the historical facts, or mysterious pieces of information that I remember, but from the fact that when I look back on this succession of memories, I seem to see the germs of many of the elements that make up my current personality. Sketchy though it is, I see an epic story that tells me where many of my faults and positive attributes, my habits, belief systems, and my various strengths and weaknesses began. Just as most
Okay, so really, really important. Let's just hear what he says right there. Like, and it's so key to what we talk about on this channel and how it links to the soul trap.
of memories, place names, memories are actual remnants of past life experience comes not from the place names, the historical facts, or mysterious pieces of information that I remember, but from the fact that when I look back on this succession of memories, I seem to see the germs of many of the elements that make up my current personality.
And that's where the research leads, right? Conclusively about how issues, problems, hang-ups, phobias, fears, whatever, right? Relationships, and many other things, how those issues, problems, positives, negatives, whatever they may be, carry over into our current incarnation and how they impact us mostly subconsciously, but they have they can be real hangups for us. But again, we're faced with the problem of, if this whole system is to learn and grow and excel, exceed, and, you know, blah, 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 right? If all that is true, again, we put forth the dagger, and that is that, why is there a memory wipe? How come do we not remember our past lives in full recall and what we're supposed to work on, this elusive karma that's talked about? And how, I mean, how twisted and sick is it that hang-ups and trauma and all sorts of things in between can negatively impact us in this lifetime without our knowledge of it? Just think about that and how screwed up that is, right? And yet something, you could be afraid, you have a deep fear of swimming or something, right? Well, maybe you drowned in a past life, or maybe you came close to drowning in a past life and you have had a fear of that since, so you don't like swimming because of that. Many of us have fears of heights, right? That's an interesting one. It makes you wonder why. Why do so many of us have a fear of heights? Many of us, fall off a cliff or something. I know I faced it kind of head on and went skydiving one day. Just was like, okay, I'm going skydiving. I just went, boom, didn't stop. But you still get that uneasy feeling, right? When you're looking down and you're at the top of a tall building or something. I don't know. It's just throwing it out there.
Sketchy though it is,
But
I
some
see
people
an
aren't
epic story
afraid
that
of heights.
tells me where many of my faults and positive attributes, my habits, belief systems, and my various strengths and weaknesses began. Just as most people can look back on their childhoods and see events that helped sculpt their current identity, I see a similar progression of self-development over the lifetimes I remember. I would like to say at this point that I do not have any memories of having been a famous historical personage, nor do I have any tales to relate about having been a pharaoh or even a lesser pope. Indeed, most of the past lives that I remember are relatively undistinguished and have little about them of interest save for the personal significance they hold for me. However, here and there throughout the book I will offer further experiences of my own when I feel that they communicate larger points, or complement the findings and discoveries of other researchers. My main reason for deciding to write a book on past lives and my personal experiences with reincarnation is the fact that public attitudes about reincarnation are changing. My first inkling of this came in 1982, shortly after I published a novel about the vampire, entitled The Delicate Dependency. I was drawn to the subject because I was disappointed that no vampire story I had encountered satisfactorily explored what I considered to be the most intriguing aspect of vampires, their immortality. In spite of the fact that most vampires are portrayed as centuries old, they seem to me very much like ordinary human beings, except for their penchant for drinking blood. I reasoned that if an individual had truly lived for centuries, his psyche, his perceptions, and even his thinking processes would be radically different. I believed this because I knew how much I had been affected even by my fragmented memories of having lived before. After the publication of the novel, I was asked to speak to a group of about 40 people. During the course of the talk, someone asked the inevitable question.
I am going to adjust the playback speed. It is slow. I meant to do that before. I apologize. Yeah, it's definitely slow.
Inspired you to write a novel about vampires? I fidgeted. Although reincarnation and my own past life memories had been my inspiration, I had not mentioned any of this in the novel and harbored the fear that I might be viewed as a little odd if I admitted this secret. Nonetheless, I took a deep breath and answered. For a moment, the audience was silent.
Faltering, I explained that I
that's a little too much.
Felt that I had lived before. I then asked if anyone in the audience felt the same way. To my surprise, after a moment or two, virtually every hand went up, as first one person and then another confessed that they, too, possessed fragments of what they believed to be past life memories. A middle-aged elementary schoolteacher admitted that she seemed to have a vague recollection of sitting on the porch of a plantation and gazing out over the field. A young real estate agent confessed that he had always had a sense that he had been a soldier during World War II. What impressed me most of all was the growing level of excitement in the room as person after person scrambled for the opportunity to express thoughts and feelings they had previously kept to themselves. I realized that I had unwittingly opened a floodgate. Another reason for writing a book about reincarnation is that I have spent my life exploring different ways of understanding both past lives and the spiritual workings of the universe. This exploration has included the reading of countless books, conversations with thinkers in scientific and mystical fields, and my own experiences and observations. In addition to assisting me in writing my novels, my research gave birth to 2 earlier nonfiction books on mystical subjects, mysticism and the new physics and beyond the quantum. During the course of my research, I have talked with numerous past life therapists, and with each step I've found more evidence to support what I call the past life phenomenon. Some of the most persuasive evidence in favor of reincarnation was offered by the late psychologist Dr. Helen Wambach. Throughout her 29-year investigation of the past life phenomenon, Dr. Wambach amassed compelling evidence that she reported in her 2 books, Reliving Past Lives and Life Before Life. One of the methods Dr. Wambach most frequently employed was to hypnotize a group of adults and then ask them standardized questions about their past lives. After hundreds of such group sessions, she would compile the data and examine it statistically to see if the responses corresponded more with historical fact, or more with what one would expect if the past life memories that were surfacing were merely the result of unconscious fantasy.
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
she would ask all of the adults
Okay.
in her sessions where they had been in AD 25.
Okay. So if they are fantasy, and this is where you got to be careful. Like, past life regressions are tough. They really are. I think a lot of you know my stance for the most part, but there's a lot of bullshit out there. A lot. And, you know, it was spearheaded by individuals like Dolores Cannon. And you know what? I'm just saying it, right? I know there are listeners right now hearing me say this, like, oh, I love Dolores Cannon and, she's legit. Well, she's not. Like, she's not legit in any sense of the word. Okay. And her methods, the teachings that have gone out to uh, probably a good chunk of honest therapists who have taken those teachings and applied them to their own practice and, in my opinion, muddied the waters. That's the problem I have. You have so many quote unquote experiencer accounts coming out of the Dolores Cannon way of teaching that do not align with other regression therapists. Now, the biggest issue is always at the end of the day going to reside on who is the practitioner. How are they leading the regression? And even more importantly, well, they're both equally as important, but when you have a client, when they have a client that comes forward and has already consumed the Dolores Cannon empire of videos and books and lectures and blah, 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 right? They most likely already have ideas in their head related around some of the most ridiculous so-called experiencer accounts, right? And if they have pre-baked belief systems and thoughts about themselves in relation to that, or just have baseline belief systems and then bring that into a hypnotherapy session, well, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to get confirmation of that in some way, shape, or form. And then add to it, if you have the practitioner as well, the hypnotherapist involved in believing or, going to the Dolores Cannon Empire hypnotherapy regression courses, getting certified so then they can be like in the database and they can put it on their website or in the yellow pages back in the day so that they have that accreditation so that people who are actively seeking that out will feel comfort in being able to go see that specific practitioner. So it's got this incredibly damaging effect on past life regressions. And there's no sign of it ever stopping. It's as big as it ever was. If anything, it's grown in unbelievable scale since the internet and her passing, right? And no matter what I say, there are going to be people here that'll just click this video off right now because they want to believe that method of hypnotherapy is legit. Now, I will say this. There are past life regression hypnotherapists out there who get certified in multiple ways to conduct the past life regression. And again, this is to build their business, right? And so if someone's going under, let's say, Michael Newton's course for past life regressions, Michael Newton hammered over and over and over and over again the importance of not leading your client. And when you compare Newton's work with someone like Dolores Cannon, it's night and day. They are so completely different that if you go through her books and his books, you can't help but come out of those experiences saying somebody is lying. Somebody is bullshitting me and the world and the realm. Okay? That's the truth of it. And so if you want real research, if you want like real information without the fluff, without the bullshit, without the aliens, and without the walk-ins and the this and the that and the feel good, mushy stuff, right? Then you're at the right channel. But if you're just trying to like buy into her stuff, I don't know. It's so blatantly obvious. All I will say is I don't blame anyone for buying into that stuff. I gave her a chance, right? I read her a bunch of her books, like 3 or 4 of them. And I read all of Newton's books. I read Brian Weiss's books. I a bunch of them, right? And all I can say is that as long as you really go in there and consume that information and then are able to objectively look at them and say something is seriously wrong here between Newton and Dolores Cannon, then you'll see what I'm saying. So I'm not just blowing smoke out everyone's ass and just saying, believe me, believe me, believe me. No, go through the books and you'll see it. You go to her YouTube channel, you'll see it. Go to Michael Newton's, lectures and interviews and stuff out there. You'll see the difference. It is night and day. The two cannot be compared. And the only thing you should come away off with at the end is that there's corruption, there's lying, there's bad teaching that has led to this insane industry that has absolutely put a huge, huge dump all over past life regressions. So it has to be said. And here at this channel, my friends, it's all about real research, data patterns, and what we can prove and what we can't prove. And then if there's opinions, we talk about that and put that up front. So please I know I went on a little tangent there, but I think it's really important. It's really, really important to know this stuff and just take it in and apply it to your own research. Remember, don't believe me. Don't trust me. Just go do your own research and you'll see what I'm talking about and confirm it for yourself. And you'll know that what I'm talking about today is true.
Were merely the result of unconscious fantasy. For example, she would ask all of the adults in her sessions where they had been in AD 25. She reasoned that if the responses were only fantasy, most American adults would associate such a time period with Israel or Rome. Similarly, she figured that most Americans would associate the year 1700 with pilgrims and early America, and the early 1860s with stories about the Civil War. To her surprise, in a statistical sampling of 1,050 regressions, most of the responses she got for AD 25 involved past lives in Turkey, Pakistan, and around the Indus River. In the 1700s, 63% were in Mediterranean Europe and Northern Europe, and in the early 1850s, although half of her subjects reported living in various areas in the United States, only 3 of her subjects mentioned any involvement with the Civil War. Geographic distribution was not the only topic Wambach asked her subjects about. Surveys have shown that given the choice, a majority of Americans would prefer to live life as a male. However, it is a biological fact that at any given point in history, roughly half of the human population was male and half female. If the information she was calling forth was the result of fantasy, Wambach reasoned that her survey should show more memories of male past lives than female, but this was not the case. As she discovered, regardless of the sex they had in their current lifetime, when regressed to the past, my subjects split neatly and evenly into 53% male and 49.7% female lives. One criticism that has been leveled against reincarnation is that too many individuals claim to remember lives as rulers and other historical personages, and Wambach investigated this facet of the past life phenomenon as well. However, far from finding a preponderance of lives lived in fantasized splendor, she found that most of her subjects remembered humble and peasant-like previous existences.
Now see, that's key, right? That's key. And when you get into the Dolores Cannon material and some of the Brian Weiss is a little more. I think there's. I'm not. Look, let's just say the Brian Weiss. It's tough, right? Because you have some things that I just know are complete horseshit, right? Um, and in my opinion, he's a little more slick with how he does it. So yeah, they may not be Cleopatra, but they were present when Jesus was getting nailed on the cross, and they cried. And this and they were there and they couldn't do anything about it. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, they're a peasant, but they're at this incredible moment in history, right? When supposedly an individual by the name of Jesus was there and getting nailed on the cross, and they were present and they couldn't do anything. Or maybe they were even participating and, you know, helping bang in the nails or something. You know, I'm like, that's when you're getting stories like that. Like it is Cleopatra light, okay? Yeah, so or Julius Caesar light. So again, like this entire thing with past life regressions, the research has been like really just shit on. Like, and it's sad because there's truth in it. There is good information to be taken from it, but at the same time, it's one of the areas of research into the soul trap that you gotta be really careful with because you can get ahead of it, right? There's so many sci-fi and fantasy type things going on that and delusions that they ruin it for the real cases and make it very difficult to weed through all of them. And they kind of can make you a little nutty after spending a lot of time in them. Not going to lie. No, Red, I haven't done the AI stream yet. That's coming, though. Still working on it. It became a huge endeavor. Sorry, guys. I'll get to it.
Indeed, more than 90% of the past lives her subjects recalled were lived as primitive food gatherers, nomadic hunters, or farmers, and less than 10% recalled aristocratic former lives. In short, the more Wambach looked, the more evidence she found that the past lives her subjects reported under hypnosis were not the product of fantasy. The circumstances of the incarnations they recalled followed too closely the ebb and flow of history. Not only did they report accurately about the footwear used, the types of foods eaten, and the population densities of the various areas in which they had lived, but Wambach found that even when she regressed groups of people from completely different cultural backgrounds, her statistical data did not vary appreciably. Evidence such as Dr. Wambach's is persuasive. But as I continued my research of the past life phenomenon, what impressed me even more than historical correlations was the fact that past life information has many practical applications. For several decades, increasing numbers of psychologists and psychotherapists have found that a host of human ills are treatable through past life regression. For example, clinical psychologist and noted past life therapist Edith Fiore has found that many eating disorders appear to be connected to past life causes. In one instance, Fiore regressed a woman whose craving for salty foods had left her with dangerously high blood pressure and discovered that in a previous life the woman had been a Native American boy who had starved to death when his tribe ran out of salt to cure their meat. Another man who had an uncontrollable craving for chocolate whenever the weather got cold discovered that he had been given a cup of hot chocolate in a past life after he had nearly frozen to death. Fiore states, I now find that almost all patients with chronic weight excess of 10 pounds or more have had a lifetime in which they either starved to death or suffered food deprivation for long periods. I've met Aborigines, American Indians, natives of deep Africa, and people from many countries who found themselves without food and often water. Starvation in past lives continues to affect the person in the present one, resulting in a compulsion to overeat. One woman patient who had a persistent fluid retention problem found herself, several lifetimes ago, dying from dehydration and starvation, as well as smallpox. Eating disorders are not the only problems researchers have connected to past life causes. Other ills that various past life therapists have reported include alcoholism, cigarette smoking, and other drug addictions, allergies, arthritis, asthma, cancer, depression, diabetes, epilepsy, eye problems, fears, phobias and obsessions, headaches and other body pains, hyperactivity and childhood autism, insomnia, multiple personalities, relationship problems and child abuse, sexual dysfunctions, stress, and nervousness. Most exciting of all, past life therapists from around the world report that in many cases the unearthing of the memories responsible for these disorders alleviates them. An incident encountered by Dr. Stanislav Grof, Chief of Psychiatric Research at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center and Assistant Professor of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, provides a typical example. For years, a patient Dr. Grof calls Norbert suffered from severe pains in his shoulder and pectoral muscles. Norbert, a psychologist and minister by profession, sought all manner of professional help, but after repeated medical examinations, no source for his problem could be discovered. Finally, in desperation, Norbert sought Dr. Grof's help. Dr. Grof, a longtime researcher in the past life phenomenon, decided to place Norbert in a state of past life awareness. After being regressed, Norbert suddenly found himself in the midst of a military battle. From the uniforms the soldiers were wearing, Norbert was even able to identify the melee as one of the battles in Cromwell's England. Suddenly, as Norbert watched the flurry of soldiers around him, he felt a sharp pain and realized that his chest had been pierced by a lance. At last he had found the cause of his mysterious affliction, and after regaining consciousness, he discovered that his chronic shoulder pains had vanished. How much of our current physical condition and personality is the result of who and what we have been in previous lives is a difficult question to answer. Even if we put aside the controversial matter of reincarnation, science has long debated the question of how much individuals are the result of what they were born with, their nature, and how much is a result of their environment, the product of their nurturing.
Now, that's a big part of this channel, right? Is childhood experiences. It's one of the areas we talked about a lot. There's some dedicated videos on the channel about it. Early childhood development specifically is what we call it, and what the establishment calls it, rightfully so, because that's what it is, in how it impacts our upbringing, how our upbringing impacts our future. And when you take that in combination with past life, so you can have current life, past life trauma that can present a very big problem in your current incarnation as an adult. Now, isn't there something seriously wrong with that? The fact that that's even a thing, right? The fact that the human meat suit is designed in such a way for that to become an issue in the first place. And it happens over and over and over again. Not saying that everyone's growing up with some crazy traumatic childhood, but when you get this storm together in an incarnation, in combination with past incarnations and this perceived karma issue, it creates a lot of problems in your life. And you have to just suck it up and deal with it until you're on to the next. But there is no next for us. It's over. Sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, my friends. Liberation is there. It's our last time. Don't worry about it. We'll all be out of here. when our natural death clock expires.
The nature versus nurture debate is still going full swing in scientific circles, with new evidence constantly being offered by both sides.
Okay, it's important again to reiterate that this book was published, I think, in like 87. Okay? Michael Talbot was way, way ahead of the curve with so many different topics. And so just think about how far we've come, all the studies and all the information that's come out about early childhood development since then. That's just one little topic. Well, it's a big topic, but one topic that's expanded quite a bit. And we know for a fact that nature and nurturing and environmental causes have a big impact on our future as adults. And then, of course, what the mainstream's not going to tell you is how that stuff in combination with past lives and soul groups and how all that stuff factors even harder in how we go throughout our adult life, our teens into adulthood.
Although it is a question that cannot presently be answered, there is still a great deal of evidence to suggest that a staggering amount of who and what we are carries over from one life to the next. Researchers have found similarities between handwriting, gestures, and manner of walking carrying over from one life to the next. Noted California psychic Carol Dreyer told me of an experience she had recently in which she told a young woman that in her last life she had been a polio poster girl and that she would be able to locate a picture of herself during that incarnation if she did a little research. The woman looked at Dreyer with astonishment and said that not only had she long been troubled by mysterious pains in her legs, but friends frequently chided her and asked her why she walked as if she were wearing leg braces. As if this weren't enough, the woman's mother later contacted Dreyer and told her that her psychic revelation had also shed light on another incident that had long mystified the family. The mother reported that when her daughter was a small girl and had been told that she had just received her last polio shot, instead of being happy as most children would have been, the girl had screamed and cried and begged for the shots to continue. The mother confessed that this strange behavior had never made any sense to anyone until Dreyer's disclosure of the woman's past life experience with polio. It is important to note that the alleviation of problems is not the only benefit that can be derived from unearthing past life memories.
Now, you're going to hear things that you're not going to agree with in today because of the unknown that was back then, the perception of certain things. But, you know what I'm getting at by talking about this. I'm not going to spell it out for you, but we all kind of have our opinions on these things, right? But it's interesting, right, that someone, and this case specifically, could be one of those things where it's questionable, right? If this is true, specifically about Carol's past life, and if you do some digging into her, like there was a girl named Carol who was the poster girl for polio with FDR and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into my feelings and thoughts exactly on, all that stuff, but, you do some digging, and I think most of us here would, be in line with the same thinking, right? So this could be one of those cases that Talbot heard about and, in short, took it at face value in a time when certain things were trusted more than they are today and in the last 20 plus years.
Just as I was able to recall a past life talent for playing the piano, numerous researchers have also reported successfully reawakening past life skills and talent. For example, Chicago past life therapist Gregory Paxson discovered unexpectedly that he was able to ski. According to Paxson, the first time he put on skis and stood on the slopes, he experienced a sense of exhilaration and familiarity. To the amazement of his friends, Paxson pushed off and negotiated the slopes like an old pro. Paxson attributes his spontaneous proficiency to a past life in which he learned to ski in the European Alps. In a recent conversation, he told me that he has reawakened equally astonishing talents in many of his clients. One man recalled a past life talent for riding horses and became an excellent rider. Similarly, under Paxson's guidance, writer Barbara Clow tapped into a past life which enabled her to become a better public speaker. Clow recounts this intriguing incident in her recent and thought-provoking book, Eye of the Centaur. Dr. Hazel Denning, a parapsychologist and practicing past life therapist for more than 25 years, tells of a housewife who came to her following a painful divorce. The woman was devastated. She had 3 children, no skills, little education, and no job prospects. However, in a state of past life awareness, the woman reported that she had once been a gifted teacher, and Dr. Denning encouraged her to nurture this talent once again. The woman was skeptical, but because Dr. Denning had put her in an altered state in which she had witnessed the previous life for herself, she decided to give it a try. She became a teacher's aide in elementary school and was such a phenomenal success that her confidence quickly returned. Today, says Dr. Denning proudly, she's become a recognized authority in special education, and other schools send their teachers to observe her classrooms and her methods. She even teaches special classes on her methods at the university. This then is the key. Exploring past lives can help you with your present-day problems and even enable you to reawaken your own latent skills and talent. Most amazing of all, researchers have found that you do not even need to believe in reincarnation to recall previous lives or to benefit from remembering them. Whatever the explanation, in states of past life awareness, even the most die-hard skeptics discover that they have their own apparent past life dramas lurking in their psyches, and the benefits of past life regression remain unaffected regardless of whether they view these dramas as simply stories woven by their unconscious minds or actual past life memories.
That's so important. It's now obviously it helps if you were to go into a regression session believing that reincarnation was a thing. Not necessarily anything about past lives. Preferably, the less you believe in or feel that you have something with a specific past life, the better. Like, going in fresh is best. And so yeah, but there are many examples out there in the research with regressions of people who went into this thinking, oh, this is all complete BS and blah blah blah, but they come out the other end knowing something's up, right? They may not fully admit it, but they are using they when they're in the moment of hypnosis with a good regression therapist, whether it's and a lot of times it starts in this lifetime, right? And then it can lead back, and then when they connect to something like that, they connect so hard that they know it's real, and then they become a believer and adjust accordingly. And if you got a good past life hypnotherapist there, or hypnotherapist in general who really cares and isn't leading and all that stuff, there can be a lot of healing that comes out of that session or sessions.
Therefore,
and that helps you live a better life moving forward.
Stories woven by their unconscious minds or actual past life memories. Therefore, although I have written this book from the point of view of a believer, it should be stressed that you do not have to accept the philosophical premise of reincarnation to benefit from the exercises that I have provided. If you prefer, you can look at past life memories the same way psychologists look at dreams and fantasies, as simply another expression of your mind's inner workings. As for myself, after all my experiences and my examination of the evidence, I am convinced of the reality of reincarnation. My own memories suggest that we live sequential lives in different times and places, and often in connection with the same group of people. Many others share this belief. For example, when asked if she believed in the reality of past lives, Helen Wambach replied, "I don't believe in reincarnation, I know it." When asked why, she stated, "If you are sitting in a tent on the side of the road and 1,000 people walk past telling you they have crossed a bridge in Pennsylvania, you are convinced of the existence of that bridge in Pennsylvania." I should state here that despite the teachings of some Eastern religions, none of my personal experiences have ever suggested that we reincarnate as anything other than human beings. This does not mean that I can say unequivocally that the reincarnation process does not involve other animal species. It only means that I have not personally experienced any evidence that it does. I would also like to caution that when I say I believe in the reality of reincarnation, that does not mean I am convinced that reincarnation in any way represents some sort of final truth in our understanding of the universe. If there is one thing that we have learned from the history of science, it is that our theories about the way the universe works are never permanent. Newton gave us one picture about the way the universe works, and it was and is a valid picture. However, Einstein gave us another, and quantum physics, the branch of physics which seeks to understand the behavior of subatomic particles, has given us yet another. None of them are wrong, but each has gone a step farther than the one before. I believe the same is true of reincarnation as a way of understanding how the universe works. I think that it is a correct picture as far as it goes, but that there are surely even more correct pictures waiting for us in the future.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, there are surely more correct pictures, which means filling in the gaps, right? In my opinion, reincarnation is a fact. It's just like Wambach said, and it's been going on for probably as far back as we have history for, and then some that has been hidden from us, right? This is it's not a new concept. We just live in a time where we have access to information and incredible researchers with quote unquote legitimate credentials that have investigated this stuff and proven it, like hands down. So, you know, the thing is it's happening in the here and now and has been happening for thousands of years. And how that all kind of moves on in the future, who knows? Who cares? We won't be here to see it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't apply to us. And reincarnation and the memory wipe is at the very heart of how the system runs and functions. Without those two things, it would not be as successful as it is.
For example, my own experience suggests that we live sequential lives, but science is showing us that there are levels of reality at which our everyday concepts of time break down. Thus, it may turn out that the apparent sequentiality of past lives is merely an illusion, a result of the limits of our current perceptions. Accordingly, some theories about reincarnation take this into account and assert that in actuality all of our lives, past, present, and future, are occurring simultaneously.
At the same time. Yeah.
More will be said about this in Chapter 9.
See, like, this is like, this is like a... All right, let's get into this because I definitely want to clarify. This is something that's still talked about to this day, right? And this involves the question and about time, right? So regardless of whether everything's happening in the past, present, future is happening in the now and yada, 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 right? The point is there is more than enough evidence, regardless of how time is applied here and in the astral, in my opinion, is a moot point, because there's more than enough evidence, well documented evidence by very thorough researchers who've dedicated their lives to this topic, that have shown soul groups, connections. You have children being born and saying, "Hey, mommy, I was your daddy in past life," or et cetera, right? And being able to pinpoint locations and streets and who was in their family and yada yada yada, and it's verified, straight up verified, right? So that's happening. It's real. The whole thing with the time issue, the past, present, and future, is a technicality. It's a technicality because when you're here, when you're living in this shithole, it's happening in real time, baby. And nothing, absolutely nothing, changes that nightmare. Okay? So, in my opinion, like, I don't like padding shit and trying to make it like seem like it's something that can be debated and all that stuff. It's like the bottom line is we're here, right? The bottom line is, there are many accounts out there of individuals who have reincarnated and been involved in soul groups, and some reincarnated in the same family, some haven't, years ago, right? And then they're back, they're here. And sometimes they're in the same soul group and in the same family, and they're going through this whole thing yet again. All right, so that's something that really needs to be heavily, advertised and talked about right now, because we don't want to discount the fact that, yeah, time exists here, and it's a big part of the deception in this realm, and reincarnation and the memory wipe and all that stuff plays a big role in all that, and keeping us clouded about our judgment in relation to a next incarnation, which obviously doesn't apply to us, but it did in the past. So the time conversation is irrelevant. And if you've been watching this channel long enough, you've probably heard me talk about how I find something very suspicious in experiencer accounts, something like, we're going to branch off into something like NDEs, OBEs, but especially NDEs, life between lives, shared death experiences, where we get these reports back to us, or even pre-birth planning, but especially like things like NDEs. NDEs are the big one, where they come back and they say, time doesn't exist, and this and that. Well, how do we know? Just because you feel like time doesn't exist, I feel like there's a big disconnection there, because when you come from a place of very blatant time, whatever that may be, and go into a place that is clearly slowed down, if not maybe completely eliminated with time, I leave the door open, right? But I still, in my gut, feel there is some semblance of time. And if not, maybe there is a way to manipulate time in some way, shape, or form. Because someone who has an NDE and they're out, let's say, of their body, and, going down the tunnel into the light and life review and chilling with their deceased loved ones and all that stuff, that sometimes they'll say, like, oh, I was just, I was only, the doctor documented it, and I was only flatlined for 5 minutes or something, or 10 minutes or whatever, right? Or 2 minutes. And they'll come back and like have this whole elaborate experience that clearly, from an objective point of view, should be more than a few minutes, right? So what's going on there? I don't know, right? But in my opinion, I think there's an element of time between both the earth realm and the astral realm, or the adjacent, let's say, etheric realms of the Matrix, right? And we don't exactly know what's going on there. We get a lot of reports. We have our own experiences here. We can kind of do some guesswork, but at the end of the day, I am not at all fully convinced that time doesn't exist in the astral in some form. If it exists even in the slightest, then they're all wrong. Every last experiencer is wrong. And I'm not casting shade on any experience. I'm just saying the door has to be open for such a thing. I mean, we have experiencers who, like, they have a deceased loved one or like some deity or archetype like Jesus or whoever, or they're like deceased mother, father, brother, sister, whoever, dog, helping them kind of go down the tunnel into the light. And then like there's a whole production going on to try and get them back to Earth. And like there's like guilt trip levels, right? Where they start with like kind of like basic levels and then they build up. And then all of a sudden they show someone in real time down on Earth. Like, you know, like maybe like there's one that I talked about a lot. Like, I think it was like a mother or something. So the daughter or the son dies, has an NDE, and then they're trying to get this individual back to Earth. And part of the guilt trip process, they tried multiple things. Like, like they tried guilt tripping them. Like, oh, well, what about your daughter? What about your son? What about your husband? No. And then all of it, like, no, I'm staying here. I'm not going back. And then, boom, they present the mother. And the mother's, you know, oh, well, your mother's got cancer. You know, she's dying, you know. Don't you want to be there to help her? And then it was like, boom, all of a sudden she's back. But they went through like the layers, but they zoomed in. They literally teleported her, I don't want to say mind, but her essence into being in the room or observing, looking down into the room of the mother. And that's when she basically folded and she ends up getting shot back down into her body. What's going on there? There's a crossover somewhere there. The time exists on some level. I just don't believe that it's not existing completely. The astral realm and the earth realm are inherently linked. And I don't think there's anything that can ever take us away from that information, that fact. Like, so when you hear experiencers say, "Oh, there's no such thing as time and this and that," just question it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Like, just keep listening to these people as they share their stories, and you'll just have like this, like, birdie in the back of your head saying, "No, there's some semblance of time there." I can't put my finger on it exactly, but I know it exists on some level. So that's my little rant about this. And like, in my opinion, there's no discounting time because we're living it, baby. We're going through it, and we've probably gone through it who knows how many incarnations. And when you're here, you sure as hell feel it. Nothing changes that. Nothing's changing that, my friends.
Accordingly, some theories about reincarnation take this into account and assert that in actuality all of our lives, past, present, and future, are occurring simultaneously. More will be said about this in Chapter 9. My point is that although I believe in reincarnation, I am convinced that in time my current understandings will be subsumed by even larger understandings. It is thus my hope that whether you are a skeptic or a believer, you will approach this book with an open mind. Remember that all of the concepts that I present in the coming chapters are only constructs of words, and that all constructs of words are tools. Embrace these tools only so long as they are useful to you, and replace them with other tools when their usefulness comes to an end. I have written this book to help you explore your own past lives. I've found exploring my past life memories to be both fascinating and rewarding. Using this book, either on your own or with a professional, will open up entire new worlds for you and help you learn more about yourself and those you love. My advice for using the book is to read it straight through without attempting any of the techniques described. Then, once you're familiar with the range of possibilities available for your exploration, go back and carefully reread the sections you want to start with. When you understand the techniques described, a quick glance at the boldface heads in a chapter will be enough to get you started on your explorations. Part 1. Exploring Alone. 1. Preparing. Although different methods for remembering past lives employ different techniques, a few basic skills and practices apply to all of them. By considering these and making certain preparations beforehand, you will be better equipped to embark on your own journey of past life exploration, whatever method you choose. This chapter is devoted to some of the things you can do to prepare for your journey. Keep a past life journal. One of the most important prerequisites to beginning to explore your past lives is to set up a past life journal and get in the habit of using it. The journal should be loose leaf so that you can add pages when necessary and large enough to accommodate a lot of material. You will also want divider sheets or subject tabs so that you can organize the journal into sections. How you set your journal up will depend in part on your own idiosyncrasies and on which techniques of past life recall you choose to explore. Some basic organizational suggestions follow. The chronological record. In one section of the journal, keep a chronological record of any information you discover that you think may involve a past life. There are several reasons for having this record of the order in which you remember things. First, you may not immediately recognize the meaning of some of the information you unearth, and by keeping a record, you will not forget anything that may later have significance. Second, sometimes the sequence in which your unconscious mind divulges information is important, and the chronological record may help you recognize hidden patterns and repetitions that might otherwise escape your attention. For example, by going back over my own journal notes, I discovered that although I was not consciously aware of it, again and again my psyche kept returning to the image of a falconer. Seeing this image crop up here and there throughout several years' worth of notes made me start to pay attention to it, and it subsequently became a key symbol in helping me unravel a past life I had had in ancient Persia. Last, by regularly committing the information you uncover to a journal, you will help communicate to your unconscious mind the seriousness of your intent. Although it is a subject that will be discussed at greater length later in this book, it bears mentioning now that you should begin to view your unconscious mind as almost a separate entity, a secondary and vaster you, which stands behind the chatter of your everyday thoughts. It knows much more than you do about who you are and what you have been in previous existences, but like a wise old yogi sitting in a cave, it must be persuaded that you are serious in your desire for greater self-understanding before it will help you in earnest with your quest. Since no language speaks more powerfully to the unconscious mind than habit and repetition, by getting into the habit of bringing past life information up to the surface and writing it down, you will also help strengthen your past life remembering muscles. Different past lives. As you begin to remember your past lives, devote a page, or more if necessary, to each of the different past life personalities you begin to discover in your unconscious. For example, you may have a heading called the 16th century priest or the Old West barmaid. You may also list personalities that you have not yet pinned down in history, such as the woman who died in childbirth, the leather worker, or the man who died from a sword wound. It is imperative that you have a loose leaf journal for this section to allow you to move pages around, because as you gather together a body of potential past life information, you will most assuredly make a mistake here and there and occasionally confuse or even imagine a few past life memories. For this same reason, you should also always keep an open mind about the various personalities that you list. Do not become so attached to your notion that you were a courtesan in the court of Louis XIV that you cannot replace this sheet in your journal if your unconscious mind supplies you with evidence to the contrary. Similarly, remember that the only good reason for finding out about your past lives is to grow and benefit from what you learn, and this will not be the result if you allow ego aggrandizement to become a factor in compiling this section. Be discerning, and remember that your interest in any one of your previous personalities should always be commensurate with what that incarnation has to teach you about your life in the here and now. Once you have amassed a sufficient amount of information about any given past life, create a subheading in your journal beneath that personality, and then try to answer the following questions. What were the most important lessons I learned in that life? What do I like most about the person I was in that life? What do I dislike most about the person I was in that life? What negative influences from that life, situations, events, character traits, etc., are still affecting who and what I am in this life? What positive influences from that life, situations, events, character traits, talents, etc., are still affecting me in this life? Are any of the individuals I know in my current life people I knew in that life? And how has our past life relationship affected our current circumstances, goals? After you have unearthed enough past life information to be able to answer some of these questions, you should devote another section to your journal to the goals and changes that you would like to effect in your current life as a result of what you have learned. For example, if you unearth a past life in which you were a leader, but in your present life you are now a shy person or unable to manage even simple situations effectively, you should use the information you have uncovered to help you realize that leadership qualities are still latent within you. Thus, in the goals section of your journal you might write, I would like to reawaken the bravery, assertiveness, and ability to manage complex situations, which I possessed during my life as a naval commander in ancient Rome. Because of the tremendous potential for past life information to heal, benefit, and transform your current life, you will want to set aside room for a lot of entries in this section. Category headings and sample entries might look like this. Past life strengths, talents, and wisdom that I would like to enhance or reawaken in my current life. I would like to reawaken the ability to play the piano that I possessed during my life in 19th century London. I would like to reawaken the psychic abilities that I possessed when I was a seer in ancient Greece. I would like to call upon the endurance I possessed during my life as a soldier in World War I to enhance my ability to reduce the stress I experience in my current job. I would like to call upon the compassion I possessed when I was a Buddhist monk in India to enhance my current ability to love and be generous with others. Past life traumas, pains, and negative patterns I would like to heal or overcome in this life. I would like to let go of the great sadness I feel as a result of the persecution I experienced when I was a slave. I would like to let go of my tendency to overeat as the result of my having starved to death in a previous life. I would like to heal my inability to love as the result of the past lives I have had in which I was ill-treated. I would like to heal the fear of flying I have as the result of having died by falling. I would like to heal the back pains I have as a result of having had my back broken in a previous life. Things I would like to forgive myself for or atone for in a positive way. I would like to learn how to forgive myself for having been so cruel during my life as a warrior. I would like to help others more in this life to atone for having been so selfish during my life as a ruthless landowner. I would like to learn how to be more accepting in this life to atone for the life in which I participated in the persecution of others. I would like to learn to forgive myself for the guilt I continue to experience as the result of the past life I had in which I had to survive by stealing from others. Things I would like to heal or forgive in others. I would like to heal my current relationship with my husband and forgive him for having brutalized me in a previous life. I would like to heal my current relationship with my friend and forgive her for the role she played in my death in a previous life. There are several reasons why writing down your goals will help you in your past life explorations. First, objectifying.
Like, if you just like listen, go back, and I'm not going to repeat them all and go back in the video, but if you listen to everything he said, I think a lot of those things, or a number of those things, can apply to many of us, but we subconsciously might not know it. But maybe there's something that you just heard on that list that you do connect with. And maybe you know it deep within you that there's some connection to that. And maybe it's something to explore. So just some food for thought.
Them in written form once again helps communicate your desire to your unconscious mind. In fact, sometimes writing down your goal is all the prodding the unconscious mind needs to initiate the processes necessary to fulfill your requests. However, this is not always the case, and should follow-up work prove necessary, such as further past life exploration, dream work, or work with a therapist, writing down your goal will at least help set the process in motion. Second, writing down your goal will also function as a reminder. For instance, you may find that your mind has grown so accustomed to ignoring various pieces of past life information that it will take a concerted effort on your part to keep some realizations from slipping back into the mists of the unconscious.
God, isn't that the truth? That is such a truth bomb of epic proportions. Slipping back into things is something I've admittedly had troubles with. Even though I realize them, right? And I do connect them to some past life exploration, right? Like, or like inner knowing, with some sessions, right? It's not always easy to rid yourself of certain things, and it's not like an excuse. It's not like a pity party or anything like that. It's just like retraining yourself, and I don't know. It's why is it so much effort? You know, that's my thing, guys. It's like, why does there have to be so much fucking effort into all of this, right? And I don't know. I'll shut up.
As you continue to unravel still more information about your past lives in the months and years ahead, the goals section of your journal will help you keep track of continuing themes and threads you might otherwise forget. Methods of exploration. There are several reasons for devoting a section of your journal to each of the different methods of past life exploration you choose. The first is that after you have spent some time experimenting with different methods, you will be able to see at a glance which methods tend to produce the most information for you. By keeping the methods straight, you will also be able to see what type of information each method helps you unearth. For example, although I have found that meditation and the resonance method help me remember the most information in terms of sheer volume, the most specific information, people's names, words in foreign languages, and place names, tends to come through when I employ dreaming technique. Also, some of the methods for past life recall explained in this book require a certain amount of note-keeping. For instance, the resonance method will instantly allow you to compile a vast number of disparate pieces of information, and you will need to write this information down in your journal simply to be able to analyze it and remember it all. Similarly, dreaming techniques rely on your ability to remember your dreams, and dream researchers have found that this process is actually facilitated by journal keeping. One word of advice. To avoid having to write down the same information in both the chronological section of your journal and in the section devoted to the particular technique you are employing, you may want to develop some system of cross-referencing. For example, in the chronological section of your journal, instead of keeping a verbatim record of every memory you unearth, you might simply enter a one-line summary of the information or experience and then list the journal page where the more complete records can be found. Set up a room for your past life explorations. After you have organized your journal, the next most important thing that you should do is prepare a room in which to perform your past life explorations. Although no special setting is required for dream work or the resonance method, you will need a clean, quiet place with a suitable atmosphere in which to practice solitary meditation.
And you know what? I'll throw onto that, and we've talked about this with the wake to sleep method. I think one of the most important things with getting or achieving a heightened meditative state, which could potentially lead to past life realizations, connections, or if you're going to do something like a online regression through like a audio file or video file. And I think I can't stress this enough. Anyone listening, please, please, please take this under consideration. Do what you want to do, of course, make your own sovereign decisions. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you don't do this type of work in like an extremely comfortable setting, like your bedroom or the couch that you sit on every night with your wife or your husband or whoever, right? Like, do it in an area in the house that you're not necessarily in all the time. Maybe, I've talked about getting a zero gravity chair, or maybe just sitting on the floor, with a cushion or a pad, laying under a meditation pyramid or something. Anything to wherever you're going to initiate this practice should not be something that like you're super, super comfortable in. There should be a slight level of discomfort or something new, right? Maybe it's just like the chair in your backyard. You set up a folding chair or something. Simple stuff, right? But something that takes you out of your everyday run-of-the-mill routine, where you introduce a semi-new environment, even if it's in your current environment, like your home or your backyard or whatever it may be. These things, I feel, are extremely important and can yield results much better than if you were to do something like a meditative practice on your bed or your couch or the couch that you sit on with your wife or your husband every night, right? Or whatever, right? Your favorite chair, right? No. Make yourself a little uncomfortable or go outside your quote unquote comfort zone. Don't be uncomfortable, like to the point where like it's annoying you or where like you couldn't possibly impact a successful session, but throw yourself in a situation where it's not your normal everyday routine, where you're basically kind of breaking the pattern of the matrix, so to say, and see how it works for you. That's all.
Meditations for two, or self-hypnotic technique. Many schools of meditation recommend setting aside a room for the sole purpose of your journeys into your deep self. If you are fortunate enough to have a spare room, you might consider converting it to a meditation room. However, any quiet room in which you feel comfortable and relaxed will do, though for many people it is inadvisable to use a bedroom because of its associations with drifting off to sleep. Once you have chosen a place, you should then outfit it in a way that will be conducive to your own personal meditative need. For example, if you prefer to sit in the lotus position while you meditate, you will want to have a cushion. If you prefer to meditate lying down, you may want to install a carpet or a beautiful oriental rug. It is important to remember that there is no single correct way to meditate. The main thing to keep in mind when you prepare a place for exploring past lives is that your goal is to feel relaxed and comfortable. If you need to use pillows to be comfortable, use pillows. If you prefer to lie on a couch, lie on a couch. You will also want to create a tranquil and meditative atmosphere in the place that you choose. Again, the way that you go about doing this will depend on your personal idiosyncrasies. For example, some people find that constructing a small shrine in their meditation space helps them achieve a feeling of reverence and quietude. Such a shrine might consist of religious icons, pictures of scenes of natural splendor, or simply a vase of flowers. As for the placement of such objects, you might want to arrange them on a shelf or low table set aside for such a purpose. If you have an alcove in which to place a shrine, so much the better, but even just the corner of the room, an area of wall, or a decorative cabinet will suffice. People have found many settings that help to open the doors into their previous life. Some are described below. Lighting. Lighting is especially important. If you are like most individuals, you will probably want the lighting to be soft. A candle, a small night light, or a lighting source with a dimmer switch are ideal. You will also want the lighting in a place that provides the least amount of distracting glare. For instance, if you find that it is easiest for you to meditate while you are lying flat on your back, you will probably not want your source of lighting to be overhead. You may also find that you meditate best in total darkness, though if you find yourself more prone to drifting off to sleep than into altered states of consciousness, this is a good indication that you should have some light source on. As you experiment with different lighting situations, you may also try colored bulbs. However, if you do try this tack, you should pay careful attention to the effects different colors of light have upon you and avoid those which cause you even the slightest feelings of tension or unease. Music. I personally prefer to meditate in silence, but many find that soft music is conducive to a meditative atmosphere. Many New Age bookstores have records and tapes designed especially for meditation. Some of these are instructional, though, and this may not be what you are looking for, so read the label carefully. Also, since your purpose is to open...
Okay, so I think that's great advice. Now, like everyone kind of comes at this information at various times in their lives. Some people have been watching this channel and on their path for many, many years. Some just found it, last month or last year or maybe a few days ago. And I'll just say, from someone who's meditated for years now, that in my opinion, I agree with Mr. Talbot that eventually meditating with no music or sound is there's something to be said about it, right? I think it's a good springboard. Or maybe like if you're, say you meditated in the past and maybe you fell behind in your practice or something. And remember, meditation is what you make of it, right? Don't go into these guru zones. And let me just make sure to put this forward, that this is a non-guru zone, non-judgment zone. You do what you need to do for you. Like, this is all about sovereign decision making, this channel, and that's the biggest thing I promote. And whatever you find helpful for you, that's all that matters. Whatever yields results or whatever you need to do for you, that's all that matters. Like, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. And but what I've found is, I used to always have my meditations to Tibetan music or Zen music or bells or waves or all that stuff, right? Various different meditation soundtracks or guided meditations, all that stuff, right? I think they are great tools. So don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on them whatsoever. I think, sometimes we go into this and we think like if you follow some of these meditation teachers out there, and like we're gonna kind of have a little sidebar on meditation in and of itself. And meditation absolutely can lead to past life realizations. 100%. It can happen. Will it definitely happen for you? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's something that you can find yourself backing into unknowingly and having some sort of huge connection or realization in that past life, and then you can like connect it to reasoning in your current incarnation, and it's just like wild, really wild. But that aside, as far as like music and guided meditations and all that stuff, if that's what you feel you need, go for it. And I think there are great channels, great tools out there. I've talked about Jason Stevenson's channel many times on this channel. Check him out. Like he's got some new agey stuff, but overall, if you spend some time digging through his content and scripts and all that stuff, you'll find very, very good positive reinforcement for your meditative sessions, and perhaps back into a past life realization that you connect with in a big, big way. But eventually, I think if you institute a practice, you'll find yourself where you don't need that. You don't need it. It doesn't mean you should just discount it and throw it away completely. Again, do what you want to do. One of the biggest things I found helpful are straight up tones, right? So if I'm not meditating in silence, then I'm using straight FLAC tones, not YouTube, not compressed audio. Like Odyssey is good for this. You can go down Odyssey and you can find some great uncompressed audio. You can also download uncompressed audio, which that's truly what I'd recommend, because then what you're getting 100%. And it's even worth throwing in a couple bucks, towards these types of things. If you're a member on the channel and the Discord server, I do have some straight tones and links to FLAC files. And the thing with FLACs is that they're uncompressed. They're just the top tier quality. And so that means they're really, really big files. So they're not necessarily for everyone's like phone or device, but it's important stuff. Like if this is something you're going to explore and want to test through the various types of tone structures, it's worth it, right? It's like worth clearing your phone, transferring videos or your pictures or whatever you got on there. Maybe removing a game or something or whatever's going on in your phone, to make sure that you have at least some room for, a few gigs of straight tones. And then you can have a music player loop those tones for your sessions and make it seamless. And you can utilize those things to perhaps connect to a past life, or have an extremely heightened meditative session where you leave your body. And I can't recommend it enough. Like, these are just small, simple things. We are frequency-based beings. And there are some geniuses out there who have done some incredible work and are able to say, hey, this frequency, this frequency, this frequency, if you listen to it with a left and right, that's the most important thing, is having headphones that have a clearly stereo labeled, headset. You want to make sure you have left and right, and that you're plugged in, and that you're getting sound on the left and on the right, so that you can get the full experience. If it's not connecting in stereo, then what's weird is these frequencies are phantom like, and they interact with our brains in a certain way that create, I guess, an illusory sound or experience, should I say? I mean, I know it sounds nuts, but that's the truth. That's what happens. Um, and they discovered this stuff, decades ago. And I'm sure they used it for, well, we know that they used it for nefarious purposes, for like mind control and all sorts of stuff. But the whole point is to take these tools, which are, again, they're just tones. I'm talking about things without scripts, without someone chirping in your ear, just straight tones. You listen to them and you meditate on them in the moment, and you'd be surprised at the experiences that you can have. And you can gain a lot from that. So just throwing that out there. Again, get yourself an app that can play FLACs. There's a number of them out there. And then download FLAC files, or even pay. I suggest paying for them. And they're worth the investment. You spend $20, $30 for an album or two, and then you just loop them and implement them into your meditation session.
Some of these are instructional, though, and this may not be what you are looking for, so read the label carefully. Also, since your purpose is to open your inner self to past life information, it is advisable to avoid music which is suggestive of a specific culture, as this may influence your past life explorations and even create false past life impressions. Incense. Perhaps one of the most ancient techniques for creating a meditative atmosphere is the burning of incense. It is no coincidence that places of worship all over the world have long used incense for this purpose. For many, a gentle and pleasant fragrance is as lulling and hypnotic a backdrop to meditation as the playing of soft music. If you decide that incense may be a useful tool for you to use, sample several varieties and see which one has the most unobtrusive and tranquilizing effect upon you. The ancient Egyptians believed that sandalwood was especially beneficial for meditative states, but every individual will respond differently to different scents. In addition to the
That's so true. Like, I remember learning about sandalwood years ago, and I got, sandalwood essential oil, sandalwood candles, sandalwood this and that. But you know what I found helped me? What was it? Geez, I'm having a mind blank right now. But he's so right as far as like what works for you. That's the most important thing. What works for you? Maybe there's a certain scent. Like even candle meditation, like he mentioned earlier, and there was someone I was talking about this with not that long ago, like maybe a week ago. I'm sorry if you're listening and I'm just failing to remember. But an early practice that you can implement in meditation is meditating on the flame of a candle. You light the candle, you put it a little distance away from you, and some incredible things can happen. Also, having a bowl of water. Well, water's a big one. It's a big one, and it can get a little weird, it get a little freaky, and like something like mirror meditation, that gets really weird really quick. But I think candle and like a bowl of water in a glass bowl with a light shining on the bowl. Like, so if you get like a flashlight and position it in a certain way where it's like casting down on the bowl of water, you can get visions and see things through that with a good meditation session. And you may even see yourself or connect with something who you feel is yourself in a past life. I mean, there's a lot of wild things that can happen with experimentation in meditation and things like the earth elements, fire, water, air, etc.
Above mentioned items. Here are some other objects which you may need during the course of your past life explorations. A pendulum. This can be any small, heavy object suspended on a thread or string that is long enough to allow it to swing freely. A mirror. The mirror should be large enough so that you can see your face and upper torso in it while you are in your meditating position. A tape recorder to record past life sessions with one or more people. A candle to use as a focus of meditation during self-hypnosis sessions. A crystal pendant to use as a focus of meditation during self-hypnosis sessions. 3 by 5 inch index cards to write down messages to your unconscious mind during self-hypnosis exercises. Mentholated salve. Any mentholated salve which causes a tingling sensation, such as Tiger Balm or Essential Balm, to stimulate the third eye region of your forehead when using the Christos technique. Clear your body. Many people find it helpful to clear their body before beginning a meditation session. You may want to refrain from caffeine, alcohol, and any other stimulants or depressants for at least 24 hours prior to a past life exploration session. Not only can such substances impair your ability to enter or stay in a meditative state, but they can also inhibit your ability to remember your dreams should you choose one of the dreaming techniques given in this book. Drugs are not the only substances that can adversely affect your meditations. I have found that I can obtain the best results if I also abstain from eating anything for several hours prior to a past life meditation. This will keep you from feeling drowsy and falling asleep when you try to enter a meditative state. For the same reason, you will probably get better results if you do not try to meditate when you are fatigued or have some large problem weighing heavily on your mind. The morning hours are an especially ideal time for meditating. What to expect? Every person's past life exploration is unique. Still, there are patterns common to the start of most journeys. As a rule, if you are not subject to emotional instability of neurosis, your unconscious mind will start by showing you innocuous and gentle memories from your past lives, memories that will present no grave challenge to your current beliefs about yourself. Depending on the method you choose, these memories will vary in their richness and detail. For example, if you start with either the resonance method or self-hypnosis, the memories that surface will tend to be fragmented. You may remember an object, a circumstance, or a brief scene from one of your past lives. Dreaming methods tend to produce more complete scenes, and meditation methods, more detailed memories still, even overviews of entire lives. Previous experience of communicating with your unconscious mind will also affect how detailed your memories will be. For instance, if you are a seasoned meditator or have long practiced remembering and exploring your dreams, it will be easier for you to leap into involved past life scenarios. The subjects of the past life memories you will first come into contact with will depend entirely on your own psyche. Although it is difficult to predict the nature and sequence of the past life information you will unravel, a good way of beginning to understand and anticipate the process is to look at the way your unconscious divulges information in your dreams. Although dreams may seem somewhat random and haphazard on the surface, on closer examination they are almost always connected to issues you have been dealing with in your waking life. Sometimes a simple and innocuous daily worry may trigger a dream. On other occasions, deeper and more profound issues are involved. When you delve into your psyche, you will find that the same is true of past life memories. As with dreams, the past life memories your unconscious mind will offer up to you are usually responses to issues in your everyday life, sometimes issues of relatively little importance. Sometimes the past life memories will encapsulate and address the major themes and concerns of your life. Only you, armed with an understanding of your own life and inner self, will be able to sort the wheat from the chaff. The resonance method. Through analysis of your present strong tendencies, you can pretty accurately surmise what kind of life you led before. Paramahansa Yogananda, Man's Eternal Quest. One of the easiest ways for you to begin to decipher your past lives is simply to analyze your current psychological makeup. Many past life researchers believe that past life origins can be found not only for current emotional and physical problems, moods, habits, talents, and ways of relating with people, but even for food preferences, clothing tastes, nuances of personality, facial expressions, and body language. By determining which of these various pieces of yourself are holdovers from other lives, you can begin to formulate certain pictures of who and what you've been before. This is what the resonance method will help you do. Because the resonance method does not require you to enter any altered states of consciousness, it is also one of the safest methods of past life recall and a good technique for beginners. How I discovered the resonance method. The main skill that must be mastered in order to use the resonance method is to learn how to sense what I call resonance. Resonance is an inexplicable tugging at your heartstrings, a special draw that you feel toward some things and not others when there is no logical reason in this life for you to feel the way you do. I first discovered resonance when I wondered whether I had ever had a past life in Italy, and I discovered that something inside me, not quite a voice, instantly told me that I had. I next wondered about Germany, and the same formless knowing gave me a negative reply. Intrigued, I went through a list of countries in my mind and discovered that although I had not consciously realized it, I had a very distinct and special echo of familiarity for certain countries and not for others. I also noticed two other things. First, there was no conscious intellectual rhyme or reason inherent in the list I had chosen, and second, all the countries which I had had past life memories about since I was a child were included in the list. I went through a number of other lists in my mind, and again I found the same thing. In each category I had a select inventory of items for which I felt a strange magnetism, and each of these subgroups always included, but were not limited to, the time periods, styles of dress, and other related items for which I already had conscious past life associations. Slowly, I realized that I had an entire ocean of such resonances drifting around in the background of my thoughts. Furthermore, I discovered that when I started placing these resonances side by side, they came together to form a larger picture that corroborated and added to the past life memories I already possessed. Sensing resonance. The most exciting discovery I made about the resonance method is that it works with just about anyone, even people who have no conscious memories of their past lives. For example, quiet your thoughts and allow your gaze to linger on each of the cities named below: New York, Paris, London, Berlin, Rome, Moscow, Vienna, Jerusalem. As you do this, try not to think about any conscious associations you may have for any of the cities on the list, but look into the background of your thoughts and see what your soul tells you about each one. If you are like most people, you will find that some of the cities have a special tug on you, while others are merely names on paper. Of course, you must also take into account conscious feelings that you have toward each city. For instance, on one hand you may feel that Paris has a special draw for you, but on the other you may have visited it many times or been influenced by famous artists who lived there. Nonetheless, if you pay very careful attention to the whisperings of your psyche, you will find that there is still a background, something that differentiates between even those cities you have logical reasons for feeling special about. You may have sensed it when you first visited the city, either as a pronounced déjà vu or simply as a subtle sense of familiarity or belonging. This is resonance. One word of advice.
This is resonance. Really, really important stuff about deja vu and connections.
Belonging. This is resonance. One word of advice. Resonance is not something that you have to think about. In fact, thinking tends to get in the way of sensing resonance. Resonance is a subtle knowing that manifests best when you have detached yourself from your conscious thought. When you learn to look into that portion of your mind in which resonance resides, you will even find that it seems to be a sense of having always known something. One of the most important things to remember in using the resonance method, and indeed in using any method of past life recall, is to not jump to conclusions. Just because you have a flash of a face wearing an eye patch does not mean you were a pirate on the high seas.
Thank
It may
you.
mean that you wore an eye patch in a previous life, or it may mean that you saw someone wearing an eye patch in a shirt advertisement and simply forgot that you liked the picture.
Or it means like you were obviously a member of the Archerian force and, from the Sirius star system. And there's no other explanation that you're a walk-in and, the Dolores Cannon school of bullshit is true. There's no other explanation, right? You're an Arcturian. You're chilling in the inner earth. You make appearances every once in a while, and everything's hunky-dory. Right? This is what I'm talking about. Like, we got to be rational. Where rational is shit upon and made fun of. And also separate the BS from the potential truth, the more likely truth when observing, consuming, researching things like past life regressions.
As you use the resonance method, remember one cardinal rule. No single piece of information means anything. Pieces of information only start to mean something when they fit together into larger pictures. For example, using the resonance method, you will find that you will quickly amass a large list of possible past life memories, time periods, geographic locations, occupations, and so on. You must then try to acquire the discerning eye of a lawyer or detective as you go over the list to see if any of these disparate pieces of information link together to form a larger picture. If no larger picture immediately jumps out at you, be patient and don't force the pieces together. If in your excitement you get carried away and accidentally fabricate a false past life history for yourself, you may prevent yourself from recognizing an actual past life memory that contains information that would be important and beneficial to you.
Boom. That's a truth bomb. It's so important. That's why being honest with yourself when going into this arena of past lives is so crucial. You don't want to taint the well by your own belief system or pre-baked belief system that has been pushed on you. Whether it's, Dolores Cannon or whoever, right? Or maybe some cult leader, who knows, right? Which, that's what Dolores Cannon was, but, that's besides the point. These things can, in combination with your subconscious, with your current state of being, and all these things come together with information, with books, with videos, with lectures, everything you consume. And then it creates a pre-baked idea about what was. And then you bring that into a regression session of someone who either was knowingly or unknowingly corrupted by faulty regression curriculum, and you've got a recipe for disaster. There is no way to have to garner successful information or experiences from that because of the inherent corruption built within both ends, the patient and the practitioner.
However, if you are patient and trust your own inner guides, the correct pieces will eventually come together. Remember also that an interest in a specific time, period, or place doesn't necessarily mean you feel resonance for it. Learn to distinguish between simple fascination with a thing and the deeper stirrings in your psyche that might suggest something more. How will you know when you have linked the right pieces of information together? Sometimes you will just know. The meaningfulness and validity of what you have found out will be so obvious that you will be swept with a feeling similar to déjà vu or an even more powerful emotion. On other occasions, you may suddenly realize that 8 or 10 pieces of information fit together neatly like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, but when you look at the picture they create, you don't feel anything. Do not be concerned. There may be a reason that you do not want to recognize this particular past life memory, or it may not be a past life memory at all. Whatever the case, meditate upon the information, and if it still doesn't mean anything to you, put it aside. If it does contain any meaningful information, sooner or later your unconscious mind will show you the way to understand it. The best advice that I can give on using the resonance method is to imagine that you have stumbled across an ancient fresco covered with mud. As you begin to clean it, you may find a patch of color which suggests that the surface you are cleaning is indeed an ancient artwork, but still you cannot be sure. As you continue to clean, you may find that the patch of color is a shirt sleeve, and there is a drawing of a hand connected to it, but still you do not know what the picture is in its entirety. Perhaps it is only a graffito. You clean some more and see that the figure is a woman playing a harp, and you continue to wash away the sediment and find what appears to be the trouser leg of another figure standing beside her.
It's an angel.
But still you do not know the full extent of the panorama you have found until you have cleaned away all of the mud. The same is true when you are exploring your past life memories. Even if you use the resonance method and uncover quite a complex and coherent past life story, and you will, do not cling too tenaciously or apply a single interpretation to what you have found. All that you can be sure of is that your unconscious mind has told you something about yourself. Perhaps it is a past life memory. Perhaps it is something more akin to an allegory or a dream. Whatever it is an important expression of your psyche. Learn from it. Incorporate the good parts of what you discover into your current life, and make peace with anything unpleasant. Then move on. As you set out to explore your past lives, also remember to keep one foot planted firmly in historical reality. You have probably not been Julius Caesar or Theta Bara or one of the 12 apostles. You have probably not always been the same sex that you are in this life. You have probably not even always been
Yeah, but I've been a Palladian, motherfucker.
Individuals that you would today find likable, although you should not be afraid to look at the embarrassing or disreputable individuals you have been, for therein lie the most opportunities for growth. Using the resonance method, the past life places and things for which one tends to have the most resonance are the broader features of human existence. The exceptions to this rule are those things that have left a strong impression in the unconscious because of powerful emotional associations or repeated past life exposure. Go through the categories described in the following pages, and every time you find an item for which you feel you may have a past life resonance, mark it down on a page in your journal. That way you will have all of the fragments of possible past life memories accumulated in one place, so you can study them more easily when you set out to determine if they come together to form any larger patterns. Cities and countries. For obvious reasons, most people have powerful resonances for cities and countries in which they lived in past lives. Either run through a list in your mind or glance at an atlas. In pondering this category, it is useful to keep in mind that many place names have changed over the course of time, so the fact that you do not sense any resonance for an area's current name does not mean that you have had no past lives in that area. For example, I do not sense any resonance for Germany, but I do for Prussia, a country that once occupied the northern region of what is now Germany but is no longer in existence. Similarly, you may not feel any resonance for Peking, but Peking was never known by that name to the people who lived there. To overcome this obstacle, you can try conjuring up a strong visual image of an area to see if you have any resonance with the image. You might even try looking at travel books for various regions of the world to see if you come across any images for which you feel a resonance. You may also discover that you have resonance for places that you can intuitively see but cannot name. For instance,
I'd like to address the comment of the evening by Aaron. Aaron says, "Why is nobody ever a demon seed? So many star seeds." Aaron, you're how dare you think so clearly?
you might have a special feeling for narrow streets paved in cobblestone, or for farmhouses, or mud brick buildings, or buildings near water, or spacious city squares,
Mud brick,
or Gothic spires.
mud flood confirmed. Red brick, cataclysm confirmed.
Minarets, or pagodas. You should keep notes of each of these as well. In the same vein, you will find that occasionally you will have a powerful resonance for locations that you have no hope of identifying without further information. You may sense that you have lived in a jungle or rainforest during some life or in a desert. You may feel very close to the mountains or at home when you are near the ocean. Think about different areas of the world: tropical Pacific islands, rocky northern European seacoasts, Arctic tundra, African felts, rolling Midwest meadows, and snow-covered mountains, and see which of these you have resonance for. Cultures and time periods. Another very rich area of investigation is the various time periods of history. Most people can immediately name at least 2 or 3 eras of the past that they have resonance for. Many have a fascination with ancient Egypt, others with the Russian Revolution, Elizabethan times, Biblical times, the American Revolution, the Old West, the Renaissance, 19th century Paris, the Middle Ages, the Civil War, native North American cultures, Victorian London, Imperial Rome, Mozart's Austria, the Mayan civilization, Genghis Khan's China, the Crusades, ancient Middle East cultures, or Arthurian England. Frequently, people can look at the type of books they prefer to read or the pictures they have chosen to put on their walls and discover that they have returned again and again to a specific time period. This is often an indication of a past life association. You may also find that you have resonances that you cannot place in time. You may realize that you have a powerful sense of having lived in India, but you may not know enough about Indian history to know when. Or you may have a resonance for having walked among white pillars, but you do not know which ancient culture inspired the feeling. Go back through your thoughts and try to remember any cultural images that tugged at you strangely or which seemed to possess some mode of something that was familiar. These may include a feeling for the stained glass of churches, Japanese paper screens, life in a rural European hamlet, crowded Middle Eastern bazaars, baronial halls filled with red velvet curtains, life in an aboriginal or tribal setting, log cabins, smoky taverns filled with laughter and tankards of ale, stucco buildings and dusty, unpaved streets, huge balls with women in billowing dresses, lean-tos of branches covered with animal skins, the intrigue of a Far Eastern court, life in tents, quilting bees and barn raisings, caravans with camels loaded down with silk and spices, stone walls hung with tapestries, the arabesques of Islamic mosques,
camels,
or gathering water from a communal village well. Hobbies and taste in music and art. The things you have chosen to collect or gather around you in this life can also indicate resonance. Have you always been drawn to things Japanese? Do you collect arrowheads, World War I mementos, pictures of sailing ships, Mexican pottery, French porcelain, African statuary, Victorian cameos, objects from colonial America, Persian carpets, 1920s memorabilia, Civil War coins, books about ancient Greece or Russia's imperial past. Have
Or hog sculptures.
you always been fascinated by suits of armor, or more comfortable if you have a stick of incense burning in the house? As a school project or hobby, did you ever feel drawn to constructing some unusual object, or perhaps some aspect of human life that was not from your current existence? For example, after I began to pay more attention to my past life memories, I looked back over my childhood and saw that I had made a number of objects that were further expressions of the previous incarnations I was remembering, such as a small model of a medieval French monastery and a papier-mâché sculpture of a Cambodian temple attendant replete with elaborate headdress. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia Medical School who has spent nearly 3 decades collecting and analyzing the case histories of children with past life memories, writes of children who construct models of objects or scenes from their previous existences, such as a small boy in India who persisted in constructing models of a biscuit and confectionery shop he had owned in a former life. Some of your tastes in music and art may also be the result of past life associations. You may find that you have always been unusually drawn to Chinese art or to the painting of a particular time period, such as medieval art, 19th century French art, or Egyptian sculpture. Don't be afraid to thumb through art books or consider art from widely disparate origins and periods such as African, Flemish, Babylonian, Renaissance, Indian, Art Nouveau, Greek, Islamic, Native American, prehistoric, or Mayan art. Examine your preferences and see if you have always had an unusual affinity for the music of a particular era of history. Just as we tend to associate various pieces of music with certain powerful events from our past in this life, specific pieces can also trigger past life memories. For example, as a teenager, the first time I heard Rachmaninoff's vocalize, I felt such a deep pull and sense of familiarity during a certain passage of the piece that I knew it had held some potent meaning for me during a previous life. By listening to the music while I meditated, I was able to evoke fragmentary images and pieces of information that were later corroborated by other past life exploration techniques. The potential for music to trigger past life remembrances need not always be so specific. For instance, you may find that the music of a particular time period holds resonance for you, such as the music of the Baroque era, the music of the 1920s, or church.
I think music is a big part of this. Now, getting ready to wrap things up, but I I grew up from a very young age. Like I was into the Beatles. I was into like old jazz. I was into I love the 60s and 70s music. I feel like I had a past life, and I'm just going to be honest, I don't have anything to confirm this. I don't connect with anything with a past life in more recent times, let's say. I have others in different periods of time, um but because I connect so much with the 60s and 70s, it leads me to believe that I had a lifetime in that period, right? Or I died in that period. I don't know. I also suspect highly and can't prove it, but I just like something deep within me. I suspect I was my mother's father. And I'm not going to go into details as to why I feel that way. But I feel like there's no, I'm not going to talk about it right now. I will someday. But I have very suspicious reasoning for this feeling. And so I'll leave it at that. But there will come a day when I let it all out and talk about it. But tonight's not the night. But let's just say when I kind of piece this together, it makes sense. But it's weird because I have not been in a regression session where I can get confirmation of this. It's just kind of like an intuition type thing. So make of that what you will. I'm not saying it's true or not, but I think there's something big there. And when I look at the overall picture and take a step back in combination with my interests, what I grew up with, what I continue to enjoy, like music wise, because music's always been a big part of my life. It just makes a lot of sense. But I haven't had a regression session that that gave me confirmation or gave me more information as a result of that. And it's kind of weird, right? Because if it's true, and I think it is, then you would think that you would, out of all your lifetimes that you're able to look back on, that you would be able to tap into the most recent with more information. And I have zero except feelings and intuition. Again, like I'm not gonna bullshit you and say like, oh, like give me a quarter, I tell you the fortune, and I'm gonna set up a fucking gypsy stand in front of you and just like ponder off some bullshit to you, like, because I'm just not gonna do that. I'm gonna tell you what I feel, what I experience, and what I think might be going on. And even though I have like a deep feeling and connection to the 60s and the 70s and even like the 40s and 50s, there's still something like a big gap there, even though there's a overwhelming connection at the same time. And I feel that I was my mother's father in a past life. But I've seen nothing conclusively, at least, to confirm that, except gut feeling, intuition. Again, make of it what you will.
Choir music. Remember, as with everything in this section, no single item means anything by itself. But if you find that through your tastes in art and music and other preferences, you have repeatedly gravitated toward the same culture or time period, you have probably started to reveal an area of your own past life fresco. Race and skin color. Once you learn to sense resonance, you can quickly determine certain skin colors and racial origins you have had in past lives. You may find that you have a powerful sense of having been a Native American, an Asian, or some other race that you are not in this life. Furniture, costumes, and objects of different time periods. Objects that were cherished or frequently used in a former life seem to have a special power to evoke a feeling of resonance. Stevenson frequently writes of children suddenly recognizing watches.
A feeling of resonance. See, like, that's suspect as hell. A feeling of resonance. But like there is no perfect game plan. There's no perfect playbook with this stuff because each of us are unique. We're all here dealing with this bullshit on our own. So it kind of begs the question, how do you feel? How deep is your love? How deep are you feeling about your existence in relation to your current incarnation and past incarnation? That's a big question, right? And I think kind of like what he was talking about earlier, and like keeping a journal, and or at least like taking notes on your phone or whatever you got to do, right? Is important, because then you can look back at it and perhaps connect it to other incarnations or your current incarnation and see how those past things impact your current things, whether good, bad, or indifferent.
Power to evoke a feeling of resonance. Were cherished or frequently used in a former life seem to have a special power to evoke a feeling of resonance. Stevenson frequently writes of children suddenly recognizing watches, embroidered cushions, and other mundane objects that either belong to or are similar to ones owned by their former personalities. He has found that exposure to such objects greatly increases the number of details the children remember about their previous lives, and concludes that such instances are the exemplification of the psychological law that recognition is stronger than recall. The law is by no means new. For many centuries in Tibet, objects owned by important personages, such as the Dalai Lama and other chosen members of the ecclesiastic aristocracy, would be used to encourage past life recall in a child thought to be the reincarnation of that departed individual. Generally, about 2 years after the death of the Lama in question, a search would be launched throughout the countryside. Often psychics would be consulted, or predictions made by the departed Lama himself would be called upon to assist in the search. Once a likely child candidate was found, an array of objects would be placed before him. Some of the objects would be prized possessions of the departed Lama. Others would not. If the child quickly and accurately identified only those objects belonging to the deceased Lama, it was considered a first step toward authentication. It should be noted that the deceased Lama, or Tulku, often left behind prosperous estates, and sometimes the stewards of the estates responsible for mounting the search were less than enthusiastic about finding their old employer. Thus, the child believed to be heir was put through rigorous tests before the reins of power were once again handed over. Nonetheless, the evidence was often so overwhelming that many a hapless steward found he had no choice. In her 1929 book Magic and Mystery in Tibet, the explorer and eminent authority on Buddhism Alexandra David Neal told of one instance in which a steward stopped at a farmhouse to ask for a drink of water and suddenly found himself assaulted by a little boy who demanded his jade snuff-box back. The steward was thunderstruck, for he did indeed have in his possession a jade snuff-box that had belonged to his recently departed master. Subsequent tests convinced him that the child was the incarnate Lama. David Neal herself was present when the child returned triumphant to his estate, and she watched along with the rest of the household as the boy complained about the alterations that had been made on his property and demanded various other favorite objects, some of which had been completely forgotten and hidden away in obscure closets by the departed Lama before he died. The interested reader may want to refer to Chogyam Trungpa's Born in Tibet, in which Trungpa, himself an incarnate Lama, describes the paranormal events surrounding his birth and rediscovery. In my own experience, I, too, have learned many things about my past lives as the result of suddenly recognizing objects that are similar to ones I owned in previous existences. For example, once, after glancing at a magazine advertisement for vodka containing an ornately framed picture of a czar, I suddenly found myself swept with anger and wondering, "Where's my picture of the czar?" Wrapped in the same thought was the realization that I had not seen the picture for quite some time. This annoyed me because I knew that the elaborate frame was worth a good deal of money, and I started to fear that its long absence meant that it had been stolen. I was just about to stomp around my apartment looking for it when I suddenly realized,
I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that called Trump. All right, I gotta wrap things up soon because it's getting a little late. So we'll go maybe like another 5 or 10 minutes, and then I gotta wrap it up.
That I had never owned such an object, at least not in this life. I have remembered a number of objects I owned in previous lives in this manner. To determine whether you have had any similar experiences, only perhaps at a more subliminal level, think back and try to recall if there have been any objects that struck some sort of deep chord within you the first time you saw them. Perhaps it was a salt cellar, a piece of jewelry, a type of clock, a walking stick. Or perhaps you will find that you have always had a special feeling for a certain kind of china or cut glass, 4 antique candlesticks, rosewood boxes, English writing saddles, wicker baskets, Ming vases, a particular kind of gemstone, or even something as common as coils of rope. You can also do this with styles of furniture and clothing from different time periods. You may realize that you've always had a resonance for a particular style of rocking chair, for huge 4-poster beds, for a certain kind of writing desk you've seen only in movies, or furniture from a specific culture and time. Similarly, if you think about it, you may realize that you know precisely how it feels to lace up high-button shoes, to tie a cravat, wear an uncomfortable Victorian corset, a powdered wig, Elizabethan tights, a hoop skirt, a suit of armor, or a kimono. You may even flash immediately on some specific article of clothing that you owned in a past life. I've had many friends and acquaintances to whom I've taught the resonance method suddenly exclaim, "Oh, yes, I used to own a beautiful red dress," or "I know that I wore something very tight around the neck," or "I had a blue velvet jacket that buttoned up the side." When I broached the subject of using the resonance method to determine styles of dress to one friend of mine, an executive at a television network, her eyes grew wide, and she exclaimed, "Oh, my God, yes, my feet used to be bound." Although she had never realized this fact before, it suddenly became crystal clear to her why she had had so many foot problems in this life. She took off one of her shoes and showed me that, indeed, the bone structure of her foot was still slightly misshapen in the manner of a bound foot. If you live near an art museum, you may also want to visit its historical costume and furniture exhibit. Once you have acquired the knack of sensing resonance, it is a relatively easy task to pause before a particular costume or piece of furniture and quickly sense whether you have any resonance for it. Or you can simply examine the style of clothing and furniture you have gravitated toward in this life. Often we repeat ourselves, choosing at least a few of the things in our present environment because they are echoes of previous existences. For example, Wambach reported that she never gave much thought to the fact that she always wore moccasins until she researched a past life of her own in which she had been a Quaker named John Wallman and discovered that moccasins were also Wallman's preferred footwear. A fondness for fine clothing or an aversion to may also be a holdover from a past life. Occupations. Past life occupations also appear to leave a powerful imprint on people. Frequently, after I have taught people the resonance method and raised the subject of occupations, they can immediately recall 2 or 3 jobs they have done in former lives. You may find that the idea of life in a convent or life tilling the land has always evoked a certain strange nostalgia in you. Or you may realize that you have a real feel for medicine, the military, for making things with your hands, for fishing, hunting, teaching, writing, carpentry, building clocks, helping others, acting, weaving, public speaking, electronics, or astronomy. Once you have come up with a list of occupations for which you have resonance, go back over your life and see if this sheds any light on other aspects of your personality. For example, after I discovered that I had resonance for having been a jeweler, I suddenly realized this aptitude had manifested itself frequently throughout my life without my having been aware of it. I realized that I had always possessed a natural tendency to tinker with watches and other small objects. Although I had never cultivated such a reputation, friends and family frequently brought me their broken chain clasps and other jewelry to be fixed. I even remember that as a small boy, I once saw a book on a famous jeweler in a bookstore, and I paused and gazed at it for a second or two as if the information the book contained were calling to me. But then I moved on and had completely forgotten the incident until I had my flash of insight about having been a jeweler. Once you have accumulated a list of occupations and other items for which you have resonance, look back on your life and see if any of your discoveries cause similar streams of disparate facts about your personality to suddenly come together. When this happens, it is further evidence that you have uncovered a possible past life fact about yourself. Languages. Affinities for certain languages are another frequently reported holdover from past lives, and resonance for a particular language may manifest in a number of ways. Occasionally, some individuals actually remember certain words from a past life tongue. If as a child you came up with curious-sounding terms that no one had ever heard of, or if you sometimes hear strange
AKA
words in
a
your
secret
mind,
language.
you might try doing a little investigating to see if they are actually meaningful terms from some other language. However, even if you have not had this experience by going through a list of languages, you can still readily determine which ones you have resonance for. Perhaps you have already found that there are certain languages that you were able to pick up almost as if they were second nature. Or perhaps you have never learned a particular language, but find that you have always been drawn to it, or able to pronounce what few words you know from it as effortlessly as a native speaker. Conversely, you may find that you have always had an inexplicable and intense dislike for a certain language, and this may indicate that you have had some unpleasant past life association with that tongue. Foods. Predilections for certain foods also appear to exert a powerful influence from one life to the next. Stevenson has reported numerous cases of past life preferences and aversions manifesting in the children he has studied. These include not only broad tendencies, such as taste for very spicy food, an inclination toward vegetarianism, and preference for the particular cuisine of a previous incarnation, but also very specific predilections such as a love of pears, biscuits, a particular kind of dessert, or a favorite dish. As a child, I also had quite a number of very powerful food memories from previous incarnations, including a marked tendency toward vegetarianism, a taste for Eastern food centering around rice dishes, and an addiction to strong black tea. I even remembered and yearned for several foods before I had ever encountered them in this life. For years I longed for a hot beverage that I knew I had enjoyed a great deal in a former life, but because I did not remember its name, I was unable to ask for it. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I stumbled across a type of Japanese tea made from the twigs of the kukicha tree and was thrilled to discover that it was the taste I had searched for so long. As an adult, sensing resonance for certain foods is a little more difficult than when one is a child, because adults have a tendency to like so many different foods anyway. But if you pay close attention to your inner voice, you will still be able to detect a few possible past life affinities. Go over all of your favorite foods and see if there are any that have always had a special tug for you. Perhaps you are especially drawn to the cuisine of a particular culture, or maybe the taste of a good red wine or a dark stout has always activated a special warmth and sense of appreciation within you. Religions. Because of the intensity of feeling that usually accompanies spiritual beliefs, most people can readily identify gods and religions they were drawn to in previous lives. You may even find that you have an icon or two from a past life religion as a knickknack or art object in your house or apartment. Have you always had a special affinity for Buddhism, Christianity, Egyptian gods, witchcraft, Druidism, statues of Shiva, Taoism, or the writings of the Sufis? In addition to checking various religions for resonance, Look at your innate attitudes about religion. Are you more naturally drawn to worshiping in groups or to private worship in your home? Such proclivities may indicate past life habits of worship. Similarly, look at those religions that inspire an inexplicable aversion in you. Have you always had a mysterious dislike for a certain sect or for religion in general?
Oh, you can bet your ass about that. So we'll wrap things up. I'm getting a little tired. It's after 3:30, almost 3:40. We'll see each other again soon. I want to thank drummer Sneer for the very kind super chat, and Kyla earlier for donating 5 memberships to the channel. I appreciate that very much. And anyone else who's supported the channel. But don't worry about it. You don't have to support the channel. If you just subscribe, hit the bell, comment after the stream, those small things can help so much and is very much appreciated. So please consider doing so. And we will continue this series. Just to kind of give you an idea. Sorry, my voice is getting a little shot. We'll probably get together Thursday, the 30th, at about 7:30, 8:30 p.m. Not sure exactly what time yet, but keep an eye on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed and that you hit the bell for all notifications. If you're not on for all notifications, or if you're like for periodic notifications, trust me, YouTube will never send them out. You might get them like once or twice a year. So just double check, make sure you're subscribed and with the bell for all. All right, my voice is going. So we'll leave things there. Thank you again. Appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. Don't work too hard this coming week. That's really important. And we'll see each other again soon, all right? Much love, my friends. Thank you, Mao. Thank you, Tried. V, Bonnie, and Bonnie, yes, I'm sorry for my negligence in responding. If you are friends, Bonnie, with Feynman's Variety Channel on Discord, maybe you could message her and I can get you an invite through her and make it a little bit quicker for you. You haven't missed much because we haven't had any members group voice chats recently due to the Matrix sticking it to me. But appreciate you all, okay? Thank you so much. I'm not going to extend this out and go crazy, but we'll see each other soon, all right? Thank you so much. And see you in the next few days. We're going to finish this. We probably got about 5 streams to come. At least 4. All right. Much love, my friends. Again, don't overwork yourself this week and see you soon.